the first vlog I've done in quite a long time. As with everybody, busy work, COVID, all sorts. But I wanted to talk about mental health today. It's the topic on Adoption Social Sunday with Adoption UK. And it's something that has come up a lot, lots of questions around mental health and adoption. So I guess I just wanted to quickly outline my experience of mental health, how it influenced my adoption journey, and how it continues to. So I, as a child, had some difficulties when I was growing up. I suffered with mental health through bullying, some challenges with my stepfather, general feelings of inadequacy and not belonging, not being normal, all those sorts of things. When I was 16, I was prescribed antidepressants for just being able to cope. I was in a really bad place, but I sought counselling at the same time, and I went through 2 years of counselling with Mind, which was really good. I say really good, obviously don't want to be in counselling, but it was really helpful to me. They taught me some techniques that helped me process and understand why I was feeling the way I was feeling, and more importantly, enabled me to articulate how I was feeling, which was something I really struggled with. You know, just felt like a lot of pent-up anger and resentment, and they taught me the skills I needed to talk about what it was, be reflective, not necessarily immediately move past, but start to process. At that age, you know, I was like 18, why I felt like I did, why things had maybe happened. And I came off the antidepressants with that, but ultimately those feelings have carried through, and it's, you know, taken me a long time to work on my self-esteem, work on not needing to prove to people that I'm good enough to do things, or, you know, or be someone's friend, or whatever, you know, whatever that happens to be. I definitely have a tendency to push myself too hard. I don't always know when to put the brakes on. I definitely am better at it, a lot better at it the older I get, and I try and learn from experiences. When I was in my mid-20s, I also had a bit of I'd say a mental breakdown, but I'd push myself at work. I got promoted, I worked really hard, I was really worried that I wasn't going to get everything right, so I worked all silly hours and exhausted myself, and ended up having to go into some cognitive and behavioural therapy, which I did a variation of, shall we say, but it kind of worked for me, and I think more than anything, it just allowed me to take a step back and go, you did a good job, you can do the job you're doing, you don't need to doubt yourself. But again, a learning experience. And then I suppose the other 2 or 3 big things that happened to me that have really challenged my mental health are breakup of a 9-year relationship. And that was when I was 26. So, you know, been together a long time from an early age, from adulthood. My decision to go, different, you know, reasons. I don't really want to go into those, but it was hard. It was a real adjustment. I had to completely change my life, move out, had no money, had debt. It was a really crippling feeling, actually. Had to create a whole new set of friends. It was really difficult, but I came out the other end a different person and more true to myself in terms of what I wanted to do. And I suppose the other time was when we lost the foster to adopt child. I mean, that is absolutely the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through, in terms of not necessarily to get over, because I think all the things I've been through previously had mentally helped equip me for the coping mechanisms and those strategies you need to build your resilience back up, like talking. I'm all about talking it out. Immediately went to see a counsellor. I started seeing a counsellor before the baby left, because I knew it was going to happen, and I wanted to start breaking down my feelings and making sure that it wasn't building up too much. But inevitably, it was absolutely heartbreaking, and, you know, will leave a scar on my heart forever. But ultimately, was able to come out of it through, not massively slow, but a healing process, employing some of the techniques that I've had before. I think a lot of the questions I get around, will your mental health issues affect your ability to adopt? And what I'd say is every mental health issue is unique. It's all about the journey you're on with those mental health issues at that time. I'm not a social worker, but I don't think taking mental health medication as an example would specifically stop you adopting. It's all about where you are in terms of dealing with your issues, managing your issues. You know, how long have you been in a good place, let's call it. I definitely think my mental health issues were, in terms of the mental health issues I'd had and the way I dealt with them and the evidence I could show to how I dealt with them and how I'd learned from them, actually made me a better prospect as an adopter, because I could associate with so many things in the mental health space and how to deal with them. And particularly as a child, I'd been through issues around identity, definitely around attachment, and I could relate a lot to some of the things that I talked about in adoption, having been through them, and then able to articulate how I felt about them, and allows you to then be more empathetic to the children's circumstances. And actually I think that makes you stronger sometimes, having been through mental health issues and dealt with them or dealing with them. But obviously every case is unique, and it will be down to the social workers to decide whether or not they feel you're at the right place to move forward. But mental health is definitely a reason not to adopt. If anything, I think it's positive if you're managed it properly and you've worked through it, and you can show that. And your mental health does not necessarily stay sane once you've adopted. You know, it's a massive transition. It's a massive change to your life. I think a lot of the time you forget that you've spent however long, 6 months to a year being assessed, and previous to that, for whatever your personal circumstances might be, a long time building up to wanting to have a child, and then suddenly you have this child and you're like, oh, it's amazing, and you've got this. But then the reality kicks on of being a parent and unpacking that whole anticipation, because you've got to this kind of climax of having the child, which is amazing, but you've now got to be a parent, and you've now got to, in a sense, unpick some of how you've been feeling before and the reality of what it means to be a parent, which for me I was still perfect in that sense. Like, it was hard, but it's exactly what I wanted, and I've never wanted anything more, and I really enjoy being a parent, but it's hard, and the process is hard depending on how you go through it as well. So yeah, I mean, I guess the sentiment I'm trying to give is mental health does not stop you adopting. Managing mental health well, being able to show that, and the fact you can use that, is actually an asset, and you should absolutely capitalize on that asset. But if you've got mental health issues that you're still dealing with, I'd encourage you to go and seek help. If you've got help, continue dealing with those to make sure you're mentally prepared for the process and for actually adopting. Because as much as you may want a child, you're not doing yourself or anyone else any favours if you haven't managed your own issues. So, and that's what the social workers will be there to work out. So don't take offence, be open and honest, because that's what they need and that's what you need, and it's not fair to the children if you don't like that. But I think in the most cases, most people will be managing it, going through it, and therefore the social workers will just want to understand it. And the other thing is, when you are going to talk about those in your sessions, don't try and go back to work afterwards, because I tried to do that, and I tell you what, your brain is just like mush, because it's just like deep, dark memories of childhood or things you don't necessarily want to talk about, and then you come out at the end of it and you need like a good night's sleep just to get over it. Or certainly it did for me, and I learned very quickly after my assessing sessions, just don't try and work afterwards. It's too much like hard work. But yeah, so mental health, deal with it, make sure you're managing it, use it. Don't let it put you off adopting. It shouldn't stop you adopting at all. You just need to be in a good place, in a good under management, and in a good sense of well-being. So yeah.